Hi, I'm Sid, CEO and co-founder at GitLab, and this is a group conversation with questions asked by our team members. Emily, you have the first question. Do you want to verbalize it?
Yeah, happy to. Thanks, Sid. My question is, what does your ideal group conversation slide deck look like? I know in the handbook it says, ideally we want all this information to come from the handbook, but I noticed that you had screenshots of the handbook in your slide deck. Do you have something in mind for what the ideal version is?
Yeah, I think, thanks for asking. And I think it's nice to have a presentation. Somehow just flipping to a slide deck is an easy thing, is a satisfying thing. You get to focus people on just the parts you want. But we also want our handbook to be the single source of truth. So I think kind of making screenshots of the handbook is the easiest thing. So I think everyone in GitLab that has a Mac should use a Command Shift 4, I think. It's to select a certain part of your screen. If that's not in our tools and tips, it should probably be there. And then the other thing we have that is a single source of truth is the Periscope dashboard for all our kind of dynamic database things. So an ideal group conversation would consist of nothing but handbook screenshots and Periscope screenshots.
Thanks, Sid.
Thanks. Sam?
Hey, Sid. I'm curious, what are you most excited about for GitLab and our future together?
Yeah. I think we think that because we're making it, we think that, people already see us as a end-to-end application. We're pretty close to being an end-to-end application. I think we're still at like the very early beginnings. So I think the revenue we do now is only like 1% of the revenue we could be doing. The amount of people using GitLab now is less than 10% of the amount of people that could be using GitLab. The amount of SMAU, stage monthly active users, like users times how many stages they use on average, is only at like 5%. So I think because we have a strategy and we are along that route, we think like, we're pretty far into that. I think we're still, if you look at impact, the impact is in its very early stages, and we still have to feel most of it. And you do defend, and the defend is maybe the best example. Like we already feel like, yeah, we do defend, and we haven't shipped anything yet, let alone seeing the impact. So it's first you have a plan, then you execute on that, then it takes a while for the market to recognize it and for the functionality to get better, and then you realize your impact. And so what gets me most excited is that we still have to feel 95, 99% of the impact we'll have on the industry and on people's productivity.
Great, thanks.
Brett, you have the next question.
Thanks, Sid. Since we name our product after our company, if we were to create a second product, what would you name it?
Meltano.
Okay, that's true.
So we have a second product called Meltano, and we kind of named that after what it does too. So we didn't really learn from the first time, but it was fun. I think it's a beautiful name. It's going to be interesting to see kind of what, if we add more stages to GitLab, and whether we add that as the same product or a new one. And I think about like data or MLAI or even more specific things for designers. But we'll see about that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it was a little tongue-in-cheek that we name our company and product the same thing. It's like we didn't leave a lot of room for a second one.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I think we can do other things, like we're showing with Meltano.
Great.
Christopher.
Yeah, apologize that this is a little off topic, but I know eGroup was this week, and I just want to see if there was anything you wanted to share from the work session. And obviously, no is a valid answer, but just curious.
Yeah, and nothing is off topic for these conversations. So thanks for asking that, and I now realize I should have put that on the presentation. So my bad, but thanks for giving me an opportunity to talk about it. I think one big takeaway for me was that Microsoft, we've been treating them as an atomic competitor. We say, oh, we compete with Microsoft, and I think we're competing with two offerings from Microsoft, and they're very, very different. We have Azure DevOps, which is a solution that is very complete. It's end-to-end like GitLab, but it's composed of kind of a lot of old legacy tools, and it's not very good. And then there's GitHub, which is now starting to become more like GitLab, that they're making a single application that's end-to-end. But they're still early. They added packages and CI only recently. And if you bundle them together, you can say, well, Microsoft does everything, plus they have GitHub where they have all the users. But if you treat them different and say, hey, it's Microsoft, but they have two offerings, and one of them, even Microsoft is not investing a lot in anymore, and it doesn't have any traction. And the other one is still too early, and they're kind of in a product transition. And right now, GitLab it's better to switch to GitLab than to any of those two, because they both have a big gap, either in kind of not being the modern new thing or not being complete. So I think that was an important realization, that we have to stop talking about Microsoft from a product perspective as a singular thing. It's not a single thing, and they have to reinvent themselves. And I think just like CloudBees has Jenkins and Jenkins X, and they're in a transition, I think this is a great time for us to compete, and we're very competitive.
Hey Sid, this is John May. Hope you're doing well. Can you give us a perspective on how we were received at the investor conference in Vail, from your perspective? Also, what was your favorite thing in Vail, and did it entice you enough to want to come ski it next winter?
Thanks. That's a lot of things. Well, I am doing well. We have a no-ask vacation policy, so I'll talk a bit about how many vacations I take, in the hope that everyone understands that it's common, and encourage at GitLab to take vacations. So I'm going to Burning Man next week. I also, for like 10 days, I also went to the Netherlands for a week this summer, and I also went to Yellowstone for a week this summer. So I will be taking 3.5 weeks of vacation just this summer. So try to beat that. So that's not for the year, that's just for the season. So I'm doing fine, trying to wrap everything up before I go away. We were received very well at the investor conference. For investors, they appreciate it very much if they can have a one-on-one session with management. First of all, they don't really like to kind of live stream those things. They think there's the things they care about, like the kind of, they try to find like what's good and what's bad about the business, and their questions kind of give away like what they figured out so far, and they really like to do that in a one-on-one setting. Also, you imagine if you put a lot of your clients' money in a company and there's a problem with the company, you want to be able to kind of call the management and get a good answer. And kind of these sessions are like, are we going to be able to do that in the future? So first of all, just being there really helps. Then I think we had a great setup. We had Paul and me in opposite rooms. So we had a lot of, we could handle a lot of velocity. We had a lot of meetings. Also, it was great to have the shadows there. First of all, it sends a signal about like that we're very transparent and that we invest in our people. But also they helped a lot with kind of scheduling, making sure keeping me sane, taking notes and everything else. So that was a great thing. The reception of our company is really positive. Like the numbers speak for themselves. The numbers are really good. DevOps market is super hot at the moment. There's a lot of like valuable companies coming out of that. And Paul did a great thing, like putting together our fundraising. So I think there was a lot of like buzz, like lots of people were talking about GitLab, people were interested. The second part to your question was, am I going to go to Vail? I think it was a lot of fun, but I also saw a huge traffic jam when we came in. I think we came in on a Sunday. There's a huge traffic jam coming out of Vail. So I'm not to the Denver airport. So that freaked me out, but it is very beautiful around there. I'm not sure I'm going to ski there. I might go to Salt Lake City. I hope the traffic jam is slightly smaller there. Derek, you have the next question.
Yeah, so you touched on it just a hint there, but yeah, what do you enjoy most about the CEO Shadow program?
Yeah, there's a lot of things to like. Already mentioned, like the impression it gives other people of our company, which is super helpful. Second, they're great help. They take notes, but they also make lots of merge requests. I think Kenny and so like Emily started upping the ante. I think Kenny made a ton of merge requests. It's like it's we'll see the stats next Monday when the Periscope dashboards get updated, but it's insane. So for example, during our offsite, he was a great help, and he made like 2 merge requests an hour or something for the entire, and that just kept pace. It's also great to be able to reflect. Like I have a call and it's like, it goes sideways, or I do something wrong, or the person on the other side has something that's unexpected. And it's great to be able to, I walk out of my office, walk into my living room, and let's say, hey, what did you think of that conversation? It's a lot more fun. And also in Vail, like, especially Emily helped with like, hey, this is the meeting coming up. You spoke this person, that, and then. Like you have a 5-minute turnaround between meetings. It's pretty intense, and it's great to like have people help, even like sometimes literally guiding you, like we have to be there. So it's been a big success, and I guess CEO can be a bit lonely from time to time, and of course. I'm not a friend of the shadows. The shadows are not my friend, but it's kind of fun to do it with kind of a team of people.
Cool, thank you.
Rupert, you have the next question.
Yeah. So this week, about 180 CEOs signed a letter to highlight their commitment to supporting all of their stakeholders. What stakeholder or stakeholders do you think GitLab can do a better job of supporting?
Oh, where are we falling short? Well, I think we're continually falling short on all fronts. In the offsite, I made 4 or 5 proposals to do a better job supporting our team members. In the slide deck, the last slide is about dogfooding, and that's about supporting our customers and making sure we use stuff first before we recommend it to someone else. If you think about it, it's kind of ridiculous that we say, oh, here, use this product. No, we're not going to use it ourselves. It's not good enough for us. I think the financial, the people who invested in the company, we're doing a pretty good job of supporting them right now. Although we're starting to disappoint some people because they didn't meet the deadlines, so they're not part of the round, and I'm not used to that. But I think that's fair. So yeah, I think, look, the first thing is we should focus on our customers, and then the second thing is on our team members. And I don't think that's at the detriment of our investors. I think there's a difference between the short and the long term. I think long term, it's much better to have invested in a company that takes care of its customers and its people. Mac, you have the next question.
Thank you, Sid.
So on slide 3.5, you mentioned comparing external titles with our new ones. Can you please elaborate further? I assume it's on us to keep our titles up to date and responsibilities as well with the industry and improve them. What are your thoughts around this?
Yeah, so this is to prevent us lowering the hiring bar. It's very common at companies that grow fast, like more than double, and we're almost tripling, to like say, oh, I'll settle for, yeah, that kind of is like meh, but I'll settle for that. That can be a giant problem down the, or that not can be, that is a giant problem as soon as you start doing that. And then it's like, okay, make sure that the people are coming in are making the company better. How do we do that? And I still regularly review hiring packets. And one of the things I look for is like, hey, what was the title of the person at the old company? What's the title at GitLab? And most of the times it's equal, or sometimes even more often than not, it's a slightly lower title at GitLab. And our titles kind of match. I think we're doing a good job of matching the titles to what the job is. So that means our bar is higher than the outside world. Suppose we have someone who's a manager outside and would come in as a director at GitLab. Can be that they're on a very upward trajectory, and there's a reason for that. But in general, our bar should be higher than from the external company. So that would be a signal that we're lowering our hiring bar, and I'd be concerned about that.
Thank you.
Thanks. Brandon?
Hey, Sid. Enjoy your time off next week.
Thanks.
I hope you get to enjoy it given all the funding stuff that's going on.
Yeah, well, the nice thing about Burning Man is there's no cell phone reception. So, and me and Paul will be there. So that's going to be fun. There will be no funding activity.
I'm sure our pending investors will love that. But it'll teach them GitLab, so it's good. How is the search for your chief of staff going? And then I have a second question, which is, what is the most critical requirement for finding you a good fit there?
Yeah, thanks for asking. And yeah, well, we set the deadline at Friday. So if they haven't returned the paperwork by Friday, like we're gone. It's too late. The search is not going well. I think I struggled to set the right expectations of the candidate profile we want. And then of the people with the right candidate profile, we're not getting a lot of them in the pipeline. Most critical requirement, like this is like people that like chief of staff is like it's basically getting someone in the role who's overqualified for the role, but is lacking in experience. And this is a way to kind of get a lot of experience really, really fast. So the trick is finding a person with this super upward trajectory. Like they've done really good. They went to an amazing university. They went straight into a very, very demanding role, for example, strategy consulting or investment banking, or at a high growth startup in a senior operational role. And now they're like, okay, I just want to broaden my horizon for a year and a half and then get into a senior management position. But I just want to kind of hit the accelerator on experience. But it's finding someone at exactly that point in time. Also, it's hard because chief of staff sometimes is like a really good executive assistant or something like that. And that's not what it is at GitLab, but that makes it kind of, a lot of people feel like they qualify for the role who do not. So it's been not going well. If you find someone who meets the profile, please do recommend them. And like an ideal profile would be, I don't know, studied computer science at Stanford and did 4 years at McKinsey in strategy consulting, something like that. And not literally, but like that kind of trajectory. Luckily, a lot of the other hiring is going well. So I had 5 vacancies for which we were recruiting, and an hour or so ago, we closed the 3rd one. So we have Karen Blazing as our on our board. We have a new CPO. We just hired VP of recruiting. It's going to start in halfway October. And then we have a great pipeline for general counsel. We made a mistake there. We back-channeled someone, even though we hadn't discussed that with the candidate yet. So we caused a little delay ourselves there, but we have a great pipeline there. And chief of staff isn't going well. Luckily, it's the least critical role of all the roles I mentioned. So it's not a big thing. Of course, I'm looking forward to the role. Any other questions? Oh, well, thanks so much for all the questions and have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend.